The camera is tight on a woman's hand, twisting a thin, plain wedding band. You hear the muffled sound of a string quartet and the high, brittle laughter of a crowd. Her knuckles are white. Then, a new voice, dripping with venom, cuts through the noise. "Look at her, Marcus. She's crying." The camera pans up to a tear-streaked face, illuminated by the cold flash of Gala lights, staring at her husband and his mistress. She is humiliated. She is broken. But what they don't know, what her arrogant husband forgot, is that this Gala, this entire building, might as well be hers, and the real guests haven't even arrived yet. The borrowed dress felt like a lie. It was navy blue, silk blend, and perfectly respectable, but on Elara Hayes it felt like a costume for a person she no longer knew. It was a sensible dress. In a room full of sculpted glitter, couture risks, and diamonds that cost more than her car, sensible was just another word for invisible. "Elara, for God's sake, stand up straight," Marcus muttered, not looking at her. His focus was on the grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Museum, his eyes scanning for targets. "The Websters are here. This is it." Elara straightened her spine. "Sorry, Marcus. And try to look pleased. It's a big night for me. For us." He adjusted the cuffs of his bespoke tuxedo, a small, smug smile playing on his lips. He was handsome, in a sharp, modern way, all clean lines, cold eyes, and ambition that radiated off him like a cheap cologne. He was Marcus Hayes, a rising star in real estate, and tonight the city benefactor's gala was his stage. Elara was just his +1, his baggage. They had been married for 8 years. The first 4 were a blur of shared dreams, cheap apartments, and a genuine, tender love. Elara, then Elara Van Allen, had met him while volunteering at a legal aid clinic. He was a struggling associate, and she was, as far as he knew, a post-grad history student working at the city archives. She loved the quiet, a life defined by dusty books and forgotten stories. He loved her perceived simplicity. Then, Marcus made his first million, and his second. Suddenly, the quiet, bookish girl who had renounced her own world for him became an inconvenience. A quiet, sensible, navy blue anchor in his new world of neon and noise. The drive to the gala had been a symphony of silence. Elara had tried. "You look wonderful, Marcus. The award is so well deserved." He had glanced at her, his eyes doing a quick, dismissive appraisal. "That's the dress you went with. It's fine. A little librarian." "I am a librarian," she had wanted to say. "I am the head archivist at the City Historical Society. You used to love that." But she said nothing. The silence was safer. Now, standing at the edge of the ballroom, she was a ghost. Marcus had her by the elbow, his grip possessive but not affectionate. He propelled her toward a portly man with a booming laugh. "Arthur, so good to see you," Marcus boomed, his public voice slipping on like the tuxedo. "You know my wife, Elara." Arthur Webster barely glanced at her. "Ah, yes. Mrs. Hayes. Lovely." He turned back to Marcus. "Now, about that downtown prospectus, Marcus. You've got guts, I'll give you that. Going up against the Van Allen group." Elara's blood ran cold at the name. Her name. "The Van Allens are old money, Arthur," Marcus said with a dismissive wave. "Slow. They're dinosaurs. I'm the meteor." "A meteor, eh? Well, let's hope you don't burn up," Arthur chuckled, and the 2 men moved toward the bar, leaving Elara in their wake. She was alone. Again. She clutched the small, beaded purse, her one indulgence, a gift from her mother from a lifetime ago. She looked around the massive vaulted room. The theme was Gilded Drimes. Irony. This was the life she had chosen, or rather, the life Marcus had chosen for her. Her own family, the Van Allens, had been a casualty of her marriage. "He's a shark, Ilara," her father, Harrison Van Allen, had told her 8 years ago, sitting in his study, the room smelling of old leather and pipe tobacco. "He doesn't love you. He loves the idea of you, and he will resent you when he realizes you're not a stepping stone." "You don't know him, Dad," she had cried, full of the righteous fire of a 24-year-old in love. "He loves me for me. Not for the name, not for the money I don't even want. I'm not using the trust fund. We're going to make it on our own." Her father had sighed, his face a mask of resigned sadness. "Very well. But my door is always open. The moment you need us, we are there." She hadn't walked through that door in over 2 years. Not since Marcus had joked at a family dinner that her parents, with all their comfortable retirement savings, could really help him get to the next level by co-signing a loan. The quiet, profound disappointment in her father's eyes that day had been too much. She'd chosen her side. She'd chosen Marcus. And now she was paying the price. She drifted from the main crowd, finding a small alcove by a towering marble statue. She just needed to breathe. Marcus was a comet, a meteor, a rising star. He was all of those things, but he was also cold and distant, and so very, very cruel. The later nights he'd framed as work, the scent of an unfamiliar, expensive perfume on his suit jackets, the cold way he flinched when she tried to touch him. It all clicked into place with a sickening finality. He was cheating on her. She knew it as surely as she knew her own name. She just hadn't been brave enough to say it aloud. A new wave of nausea hit her. She watched her husband across the room. He was holding court, his teeth white in the spotlight, his hand on the back of... Ilara's breath hitched. It wasn't a man. It was a woman. A woman in a dress the color of spilled blood, her hair a cascade of platinum blonde. She was laughing, her head thrown back, one slender, manicured hand resting possessively on Marcus's chest. He wasn't networking. He was holding her. His thumb was stroking the back of her hand. Ilara felt the floor drop out from under her. It was one thing to suspect. It was another to see it, splayed out under $1,000 crystal chandelier for the whole world to ignore. She watched as he leaned in, his lips brushing the woman's ear. The woman giggled, a high, piercing sound. This wasn't a meteor, this was a train wreck. And she was tied to the tracks. The woman in red was Chloe Vance. Ilara knew the name. She was an influencer who had pivoted to luxury real estate advising. She was all over social media, her feed a curated fantasy of private jets, impossible coastlines, and champagne flutes that never seemed to be empty. She was everything Ilara was not, loud, plastic, and demanding of attention. And she had her hands all over Ilara's husband. A cold, sharp anger, unfamiliar and bracing, cut through Ilara's fog of despair. For 8 years, she had made herself small. She had trimmed her own wings to fit in his cage. She had given up her family, her name, her own ambitions, all to be the supportive wife, to a man who was now, very publicly, replacing her. No, not tonight. She put her empty champagne flute down on a passing tray with a steady hand. The buzz of the crowd seemed to fade, the string quartet muffled as if she were underwater. Her entire world narrowed to 2 figures across the room, laughing in their own private, cruel world. She began to walk. She didn't run. She didn't shout. Her steps were deliberate, measured, the walk of an archivist moving through a silent library. Her sensible heels made no sound on the thick Persian rugs. Marcus saw her first. His smile faltered, his eyes widening in annoyance before settling into a cold mask of indifference. He didn't move away from Chloe. He didn't drop his hand. He just waited. Chloe turned, sensing the shift. Her heavily made-up eyes, framed by impossibly thick lashes, scanned Ilara from head to toe. It was the kind of look Ilara had seen 1,000 times, the look of a predator sizing up prey. A small, amused smirk touched her bright red lips. "Marcus," Ilara said. Her voice was surprisingly steady. "Who is this?" Marcus let out an exasperated sigh, as if Ilara had just asked a deeply inconvenient question. "Ilara, really? We're networking. This is Chloe Vance. Chloe, my wife. Ilara." The introduction felt like a slap. My wife? The word sounded hollow, a legal technicality he was forced to observe. Chloe extended a hand, her diamond bracelets clinking. "Hi," she said, her voice a breathy, insincere purr. "It's so nice to finally meet you. I've heard, well, not that much, actually." Ilara ignored the offered hand. "You're the perfume," she said, the words tasting like ash. "The late nights, the emergency client meetings in the city." Marcus's face darkened. "Ilara, you are embarrassing me. Stop this. Go get a drink. Go to the powder room. Just go." "Embarrassing you?" Ilara felt a hysterical laugh bubble in her chest. "You are standing here at a gala where you're supposed to be honored, with your hand on another woman's back, and I'm embarrassing you." The volume of the surrounding crowd hadn't changed, but it felt as if a small, silent bubble had formed around the three of them. A few people nearby were starting to notice. The air was charged. Chloe, seeing she had an audience, stepped forward, deliberately placing herself between Marcus and Ilara. She was taller than Ilara, especially in her stiletto heels. She loomed. "Look." "Ilara," she said, weaponizing the name. "I don't know what kind of sad, little drama you're trying to start, but Marcus is a grown man. He's allowed to have friends. Is that what you are?" Ilara looked directly at Marcus. "Is she your friend?" Marcus looked away. He looked at the ceiling, at the bar, at Arthur Webster laughing across the room. He looked anywhere but at his wife. And in that moment, Ilara knew. The last fragile thread of hope didn't just break, it evaporated. It had never been there at all. "He's with me now," Chloe said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, though it was loud enough for everyone in their small circle to hear. "It's just cleaner this way, don't you think? He gets his award, we announce our partnership, in all things, and you fade away. You're good at that, aren't you?" "Fading?" Ilara felt the first tear escape. It was hot and sharp, a betrayal. She angrily wiped it away. This isn't the place, Marcus." "Oh, I think it's the perfect place," Chloe countered, her smile widening. She was enjoying this. This was a performance. "It's a gala about dreams, and I'm his. You are just the nightmare he's finally waking up from." "Chloe, that's enough," Marcus said, but there was no force in it. It was a token protest. "Enough? But I'm just getting started." Chloe's eyes glittered with malice. "He's tired of sensible. He's tired of quiet. He's tired of coming home to a beige life. A man like Marcus needs color. He needs passion. He needs me." Ilara's knees felt weak. She wanted to run. She wanted to hide in the archives, in the dark, silent stacks where the past was neatly filed and history couldn't hurt her. But she was trapped by the circle of curious, pitying, and entertained eyes. She looked at Marcus, her husband of 8 years, the man she had sacrificed her family for. "Marcus, say something." Marcus finally met her gaze. His eyes were cold. "She's right, Ilara. It's over. I was going to tell you after the gala, but this is fine, too. I want a divorce." The words hit her like a physical blow. "I want a divorce." The dam broke. The one tear became a silent, humiliating stream. She wasn't sobbing, not making a sound, but the tears were flowing, washing away the last of her composure. She put a hand to her mouth, her body trembling. She was the invisible wife. And now, she was the crying wife. The pathetic, cliché, discarded wife at the gala. Chloe saw it, and she pounced. "Oh, look at her, Marcus. She's crying." Chloe's voice was a scalpel, sharp and precise, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. She took a step back, as if to admire her handiwork, her red-painted lips curling into a triumphant smile. Ilara's tears were a humiliation, but the mockery, that was a special kind of cruelty. "Please, Chloe, lower your voice," Marcus hissed, his eyes darting around. This was not the kind of attention he wanted. He wanted to be on stage, holding a glass trophy, not in a corner with a sobbing wife and a gloating mistress. "Why?" Chloe's voice was bright, falsely innocent. "Let them see. It's a real-life soap opera. People love this stuff." She turned her full, venomous attention back to Ilara. "Look at you, sweetheart, crying in your little... What even is that? Off the rack? Did you rent it?" Ilara flinched. The dress had been a gift from Marcus 3 Christmases ago. "Please, stop." "Stop? Why? Because the truth hurts?" Chloe took a sip of her champagne, her eyes never leaving Ilara's face. "Did you really think this was forever? A man like Marcus? A meteor?" she said, using his own word. "He needs a woman who can keep up, a woman who shines, not a page-turner who looks like she's perpetually apologizing for taking up space." "You don't know anything about me," Ilara whispered, her voice choked. "I know everything I need to." Chloe's confidence was suffocating. She was feeding off Ilara's pain. "I know he's miserable. I know he hasn't been happy in years. I know he's with me now. He's getting an award tonight, and I'm the one who'll be on his arm when he accepts it. You're just baggage. Baggage that's leaking." "Marcus," Ilara pleaded, one last, desperate appeal. "Don't let her do this." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. He was cornered, and he hated it. "Ilara, just go to the powder room. Clean yourself up. You're making a scene." "You're making a scene. Not, this is wrong. Not, Chloe, stop attacking my wife. Not, I'm sorry. But you are embarrassing me." It was the final twisting turn of the knife. He wasn't just abandoning her. He was blaming her for her own humiliation. The tears of sadness began to mix with a new, fiery tear of rage. The cold, quiet anger from before was returning, burning away the shock. "A scene?" Ilara's voice was suddenly very, very low. The crying had almost stopped, leaving behind a chilling calm. "You think I'm the one making a scene?" Before she could say more, Chloe, sensing she was losing her victim, went for the kill. "Oh, grow up," she snapped. "This is the big leagues. You couldn't cut it? You're just some mousy little librarian from... Where are you from again? Vermont? With your sad little middle-class parents. Marcus needs a partner with connections, with power. Not some no-name, sensible girl who peaked in college." Ilara froze. Her family. She had attacked her family. The family Ilara had abandoned for Marcus. The family that Marcus, in his own soaring arrogance, had dismissed as quaint. "My family," Ilara began, her voice trembling again, but this time with something new. "Are nothing," Chloe finished for her. "They're nobodies, just like you. Now, if you'll excuse us, the awards are about to start. Marcus needs to prepare." She looped her arm through Marcus's, who, seeing a path of escape, allowed himself to be led. "Elara," he said, a final parting shot. "I'll have my lawyer send the papers to the apartment. Just be gone by morning." They turned to walk away, leaving Elara standing alone, her face stained with tears, her navy blue dress a symbol of her own pathetic invisibility. Chloe glanced back over her shoulder, a final victorious smirk. Elara stood there, rooted to the marble floor. The crowd, having seen the climax, began to murmur and turn away, their gossip a low buzz. The show was over. The wife had lost. She closed her eyes, taking one shuddering breath. She felt the heavy, comforting weight of her mother's beaded purse in her hand. She thought of her father. "My door is always open." She had been a fool, a proud, stubborn, blind fool. She had let this man and this woman reduce her to this. She had let them mock her life, and her family. Nobody's. Elara's eyes snapped open. The tears were gone. Her gaze, now clear and hard as diamond, locked onto the back of her husband's head. "You have no idea," she whispered to the empty space in front of her. "You have no idea who you just insulted." And as if on cue, a sudden, profound hush fell over the entire ballroom. The music stopped. The chatter died. A single amplified voice cut through the silence. The voice of Mr. Davenport, the gala organizer, his tone suddenly breathless and electric, with an excitement that hadn't been there before. "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. A programming note. We are so deeply, deeply honored." Marcus and Chloe stopped, just shy of the main stage, turning back toward the grand entrance, annoyance on their faces. "What is this?" Marcus grumbled. "They're supposed to be calling my award." "Please join me in welcoming," Davenport's voice cracked with emotion, "the patrons of this entire new wing, the individuals whose generosity knows no bounds, and whose presence tonight is the greatest honor this museum has ever received. Please, welcome Mr. and Mrs. Harrison Van Allen." The grand, 20-foot-tall oak doors at the top of the marble staircase were pulled open by 4 uniformed attendants. The room held its breath. Marcus squinted. Van Allen. Like the bank? Never seen them in public. Must be the old guard Arthur was talking about. Chloe immediately began preening, fixing her dress and fluffing her hair. "Ooh, real money. Marcus, we have to meet them." Elara didn't move. She didn't breathe. She just watched the entrance. A man and a woman appeared at the top of the stairs. They were not dressed in glitter or sequins. He wore a perfectly tailored conservative tuxedo, his silver hair thick, his posture like a fortress. The woman beside him, Isabel, wore a simple, elegant gown of deep emerald green, a string of pearls at her throat. They radiated a quiet, terrifying power. They were not new money. They were money. They paused at the top of the land, their eyes scanning the room, a room that had fallen into a reverent, pin-drop silence. And Elara Hayes, the invisible, crying wife, did the one thing no one expected. She smiled. "Mum?" she whispered, a sound no one heard. "Dad?" Harrison and Isabel Van Allen did not walk down the stairs. They descended. The entire gala, a collection of the city's most powerful and arrogant, parted for them like the Red Sea. Mr. Davenport, the organizer, was nearly jogging beside them, babbling. "Mr. Van Allen, Mrs. Van Allen, we are so grateful. We had no idea you were accepting the invitation. We would have arranged a private entrance." "That won't be necessary, James," Harrison Van Allen said, his voice a low, cultured rumble that carried without effort. "My wife and I prefer to see exactly where our money is going." His eyes, a sharp, intelligent blue, swept the room. They were not looking for anyone. They were simply assessing. Isabel's gaze was softer, but no less intense. Across the room, Marcus was practically vibrating. "This is it, Chloe. This is the connection I've been waiting for. The Van Allen bank. If I can get him on board." "Leave it to me," Chloe purred, already straightening Marcus's tie, positioning herself as part of his team. "We'll go introduce ourselves." But they didn't have to. The Van Allens, ignoring the fawning procession of billionaires and politicians trying to catch their eye, were moving. And they were moving in a very specific direction. Straight toward the alcove where Ilara stood. Straight toward the aftermath of the confrontation. Marcus, seeing them approach, panicked. "They're coming this way. Chloe, smile. Be charming. Ilara," he hissed, noticing his wife was still there. "For God's sake, fix your face. Get out of here." But Ilara didn't move. She just stood, her hands clasped in front of her, watching her parents approach. The rage had subsided, replaced by a deep, profound, and aching sense of relief. Chloe, ever the opportunist, saw her chance to get in first. She stepped directly in front of Ilara, blocking her from view, and extended her hand to the approaching couple. "Mr. Van Allen, what an honor!" Chloe gushed, her voice several octaves too high. "I'm Chloe Vance, a partner at Hayes Development. And this," she said, tugging on Marcus's arm, "is Marcus Hayes, tonight's rising star." Harrison Van Allen stopped. He looked at Chloe's outstretched hand, but made no move to take it. His icy gaze traveled from her face, down to her hand on Marcus's arm, and then, finally, past her. Isabel Van Allen, however, pushed gently past her husband. Her eyes had found their target. "Ilara," she said. The sound was not a question, it was a statement. It was a dam breaking. The entire circle of onlookers who had been respectfully watching the Van Allen's entrance froze. Ilara's name, spoken by Isabel Van Allen. Marcus's face went white. He looked from the impossibly elegant woman to his wife, and back again. I'm sorry?" Chloe's smile faltered, her hand still hanging awkwardly in the air. I don't think she... This is Ilara Hayes, Marcus's wife. She's just... Isabel ignored Chloe as if she were a piece of furniture. She walked the last 3 steps and took her daughter's face in her hands. Her perfectly manicured thumb wiped a stray tear track from Ilara's cheek. "My dear girl," Isabel whispered, her voice thick with a love so powerful it was a physical force in the room. "You're crying." Harrison Van Allen stepped up beside his wife. He placed a large, protective hand on Ilara's shoulder. His eyes, however, were not on his daughter. They were on Marcus and Chloe, and they were glacial. "What?" Harrison asked, his voice lethally quiet. "Is going on here?" The silence was absolute. You could hear the ice melting in 100 abandoned glasses. Marcus was stammering. Mr. Van Allen, sir, Ilara, you know them?" Chloe let out a high-pitched, nervous laugh. "Know them?" "Marcus, darling, she's just some librarian. She probably served them coffee once. Right, Ilara?" Isabel Van Allen turned her head, very slowly, to look at Chloe. It was the first time she had acknowledged her existence. "This," Isabel said, her voice dropping all pretense of warmth and becoming pure, forged steel, "is our daughter." Silence. "Ilara Van Allen Hayes," Isabel continued, her voice rising, projecting to the breathless crowd, "the sole heir to the Van Allen estate and the Van Allen financial group." Chloe's face crumpled, the blood drained from it, leaving behind a pasty, yellow-white mask of her makeup. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Marcus looked as if he had been shot. Daughter? But Ilara, you said your parents were retired. In Vermont, you said they were in banking." "We are retired, young man," Harrison Van Allen rumbled, stepping forward. His 6'4" frame dwarfed Marcus. "We are retired from the day-to-day operations, but we still own the bank you've been so desperately—" He paused as if searching for the word, and unsuccessfully, "trying to get a loan from for the last 6 months." He leaned in. "We own the holding company that's competing with you for the downtown prospectus, the one you called dinosaurs not 30 minutes ago." He gestured to the room, to Mr. Davenport, who was hovering, looking terrified. "And we," Harrison concluded, "are the primary funders of this gala, this museum, and the Rising Star Award you were so certain you were going to receive." He turned his gaze back to his daughter, his expression softening instantly. "Elara, darling, why is your face stained with tears? What did this person say to you?" The ballroom hadn't just become a theatre. It had become a tribunal, and everyone was waiting for the verdict. Elara, flanked by her mother and father, felt a strength she hadn't known she possessed. The invisible woman was now the center of the universe. She looked at Chloe, whose arrogant smirk had been replaced by a rictus of pure, unadulterated terror. She looked at Marcus, her husband, who was visibly shaking, his life's ambitions imploding in real time. She didn't need to shout, she just needed to tell the truth. "She called me a page-turner in a polyester dress," Elara said, her voice clear and carrying in the hush. "She said I was leaking baggage. She said my family, my sad middle-class parents, were nobodies." A collective, sharp intake of breath from the crowd. Insulting a guest was bad. Insulting Harrison Van Allen was career suicide. Chloe lunged forward, grabbing Marcus's arm. "No, I didn't know. He didn't tell me. Marcus, tell them. I was just joking." "You," Isabel Van Allen said, her voice cutting through Chloe's panicked babble, "will be silent." Chloe's mouth snapped shut. Isabel turned, not to Chloe, but to Marcus. Her expression was one of profound, maternal disgust. "You." Whack. The sound of her palm connecting with Marcus's cheek was not a slap. It was a crack, like a dry branch snapping. It echoed through the vast hall. No one gasped. They were too stunned. Marcus stumbled back, his hand flying to his bright red cheek. "You!" Isabel seethed, her emerald green eyes blazing. "Let this happen. You stood by while this harlot insulted your wife. My daughter." Isabel." "Mrs. Van Allen, I didn't know," Marcus stammered, his defense pathetic. "You didn't know?" Harrison's voice was a low growl, more terrifying than any shout. "You didn't know who she was? Or you didn't care? You married her, Mr. Hayes. You lived with her for 8 years. Did you ever, once, ask her about her life? Did you ever listen? Or were you too busy building your own paper empire, using her as a quiet, respectable prop?" Marcus had no answer. He just stared, defeated. "You dismissed us," Harrison continued, his voice a judge-passing sentence. "You dismissed her. You assumed in your breathtaking arrogance that her family, her world, was nothing. You were wrong." Harrison turned his head slightly, his gaze finding Mr. Davenport, who flinched. "James," Harrison said, his voice calm again. "Mr. Hayes's award is, of course, rescinded. Immediately." "Yes, Mr. Van Allen, of course, right away." Davenport scurried off, grateful to be escaping the blast radius. "Furthermore," Harrison continued, looking back at Marcus, "your pending application for the downtown contract is denied. My group will be taking it over. I believe the dinosaurs are about to show the meteor what a real impact looks like." "No, please. Harrison. Mr. Van Allen, you can't," Marcus pleaded, his facade of a rising star completely shattered. He was just a desperate, terrified man. "I can," Harrison said simply, "and I will. Oh, and that line of credit you have at Van Allen Bank, the one you've been leveraging for all your projects? A full forensic audit will begin at 8 a.m. on Monday. I suggest you get a new lawyer, a very, very good one, though I doubt he'll be able to find anything left by the time we're done." This was the end. This wasn't just divorce. This was annihilation. Marcus's knees buckled. He actually sagged, as if his bones had turned to liquid. Then Harrison Van Allen turned his attention to Chloe Vance. She was trying to shrink, to blend into the marble, but his gaze pinned her like a butterfly to a board. "And you, Miss Vance?" "Please," she whimpered. "I'm nobody. I was with him." "I know exactly who you are," Harrison said, his voice laced with contempt. "I've seen your advisory work. I have a very long memory for faces and for names. You will not work in this city again. You will not get a loan. You will not get a listing. You will not even get a reservation at a decent restaurant. You attacked my family. Consider your gilded dream over." Chloe let out a small, strangled sound. She turned, desperate, to the only person left. "Marcus!" she shrieked, grabbing his tuxedo jacket. "Do something. Don't let him talk to me like that. Tell him." Marcus, in a final, pathetic act of self-preservation, shoved her away from him. Hard. "Get off me," he screamed, his voice cracking. "This is your fault. You and your big mouth. You ruined me." "My fault?" Chloe shrieked back, her carefully constructed mask completely gone, revealing the raw, ugly greed beneath. "You told me she was a nobody. You told me to handle her." As the two of them began to tear each other apart, a pathetic, screeching spectacle in the middle of the grand ballroom, Elara stepped back. She stepped away from the wreckage. She stepped away from the man she thought she loved, and the woman who had tried to destroy her. She looked at Marcus, his face a mask of rage and terror, his bespoke suit now wrinkled, and she felt nothing. Not sadness, not anger, not even pity. Just empty. It was over. "No," Elara said, her voice clear and cutting through their argument. Marcus and Chloe both froze, their spat dying in their throats. They turned to her. Elara looked directly at Marcus. "It's not her fault, Marcus. It's yours. You married me, but you never respected me. You didn't want to know who I was, because it was easier to have a quiet, simple wife who didn't outshine you. You didn't just not know about my family. You chose not to. You were too arrogant to look." She shook her head. "You're not a meteor. You're just a man who flew too close to a sun you didn't even know was there." She then turned for the last time and faced her parents. The full, unconditional love in their eyes washed over her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I stayed away." "You were never away, darling," Isabel said, taking her hand. "You were just finding your way back." "Let's go home," Harrison said, putting a strong, protective arm around his daughter's shoulder. He cast one final, dismissive look at the ruins of Marcus Hayes. "All three of us?" They turned, and as one, the Van Allen family, Harrison, Isabel, and Elara, walked away. They didn't run. They didn't look back. They walked with their heads held high through the silent, watching crowd. The entire gala watched as Elara Van Allen Hayes, in her sensible navy blue dress, walked straight out the grand doors with the most powerful couple in the state, leaving her rising star husband and his mistress alone in the center of the room, surrounded by the wreckage of their ambition. The invisible wife was, at last, seen. And she was, at last, free. The journey from the ballroom to the grand entrance was the longest walk of Ilara's life. It was a walk of maybe 200 yards, across marble floors and down the grand staircase, but it felt like crossing a continent. The silence that followed them was thick and absolute. No one whispered. No one moved. The string quartet remained deathly still, their bows frozen mid-air. Hundreds of eyes followed Ilara, but for the first time, she didn't feel their judgment. She felt their awe. She was no longer the pity object in the corner. She was the protagonist. Her mother, Isabel, held her right hand, her grip firm and warm. Her father, Harrison, had his hand on the small of her back, a solid, grounding presence that radiated protection. They were a phalanx. They were a family. As they reached the top of the staircase, the same one her parents had descended like royalty, Ilara paused. She heard a single, desperate sound from behind her. "Ilara, wait!" It was Marcus. She stopped. Her parents stopped with her. She did not turn around. "Ilara, please." His voice was broken, desperate. It was the voice of a man not begging for his wife, but for his credit line. We can talk about this. It was a mistake. She meant nothing. I was stressed." The loan. Ilara closed her eyes for a brief second. He's still talking about the loan. She turned, very slowly. Her parents turned with her, a united front. Marcus was standing 20 feet away, his face pale and streaked with sweat, his red cheek a blazing beacon of his humiliation. Chloe was gone, likely slithered out a side entrance. He was alone. "There is nothing to talk about, Marcus," Ilara said. Her voice, amplified by the hall's acoustics, was devoid of passion. It was the voice of a judge reading a final, non-negotiable verdict. But our life, our marriage," he stammered. "Our marriage," Ilara said, "was a lie. You proved that tonight. You didn't just cheat, Marcus. You didn't just lie. You mocked me. You stood by and let that woman tear me apart to save yourself a moment of discomfort. You would have let me die of humiliation if it meant you got your trophy." She took a step toward him. "You asked me to be gone by morning. You told me you were sending divorce papers. I will hold you to that. Except you will not be sending them to the apartment. You will be sending them to my lawyer. And my lawyer," she said, nodding slightly toward her father, "is much, much better than yours. Ilara, no, you love me." He tried, a last, pathetic gamble. Ilara almost laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound. "I loved a man I met at a legal aid clinic, a man who was happy to eat ramen with me and dream about the future. I don't know who you are, and I'm not sure I ever did. But your family," he gestured wildly. You walked away from them. For me. You chose me." "Yes," Ilara said, the finality of it settling on her. "I did. I chose you over them. I chose you over common sense. I chose you over their warnings. And for 8 years, I have lived with that choice. I made myself small to make you feel big. I cut off my family to make you my world. And the moment you had your own world, you threw me out of it." She looked at her father. "I made a terrible mistake, Dad. I'm sorry." "No, Ilara," Harrison said, his voice soft. "You were young, and you were in love. He is the one who made the mistake. He mistook your kindness for weakness. He mistook your loyalty for stupidity. And he mistook the Van Allen family's patience for apathy." He locked eyes with Marcus one last time. "You will not contact my daughter again. You will not call her. You will not email her. You will not go near her apartment. You will communicate only through your legal counsel. Do Do you understand me, Mr. Hayes? Marcus, defeated, just nodded. A broken puppet. Ilara turned her back on him for the last time. "Let's go," she said to her parents. They descended the stairs. As they reached the bottom, a valet, who looked suspiciously like her father's head of security, was already there, holding the door open to a black, understated, and clearly armored Bentley. Another man, her father's longtime assistant, a man named Thomas, was waiting. He opened the car door for Isabel and Ilara. "Welcome back, Miss Ilara," Thomas said, his eyes kind. "We've missed you." "Thank you, Thomas," she said, sliding into the plush leather. As the door shut, sealing her in with her family, she caught one last glimpse of the Gala. Through the glass, she saw Marcus Hayes, the rising star, sinking to his knees on the marble floor of the ballroom, a solitary, ruined figure in a room full of gilded dreams. The car pulled away from the curb, silent and smooth. Ilara looked at her mother, then her father. "You knew," Ilara said. "You knew he was like this. You knew he was cheating." Harrison sighed, adjusting his cuff. "We suspected, Ilara. We've been keeping a light watch on you. We respect your independence, but you are still our daughter. When Marcus started applying for loans at our bank, using our name, let's just say, we did our due diligence. We discovered Miss Vance. We discovered the leveraged properties. He's not a meteor, Ilara. He's a house of cards in a hurricane. Why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have believed us?" Isabel asked gently, taking her hand again. "Or would you have seen it as us trying to control you again?" "We had to wait, my love. We had to wait until you were ready to see him for who he was." "And the Gala?" Ilara asked. "We bought the primary sponsorship 2 days ago," Harrison said grimly. "We found out he was receiving an award, and that he had requested a second unnamed ticket for a business partner. We knew he was planning to humiliate you. We just didn't think he'd be stupid enough to let you be humiliated by that woman." "So you came," Ilara whispered. "You came for me." "Of course," Isabel said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "We would cross oceans. We would move mountains. You are our daughter. There is no version of this world where we let you fall. Ever." Ilara leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. The navy blue dress felt different now. It no longer felt sensible or invisible. It felt like armor. She had worn it to the battle of her life, and she had walked away, not just intact, but stronger. She was no longer Ilara Hayes, the invisible wife. She was Ilara Van Allen, and she was finally, truly, home. The first morning felt like a betrayal. Ilara woke up not to the 6 a.m. alarm she always set, but to the soft, pale yellow sunlight of her childhood bedroom. For a long, disoriented moment, she was 22 again, a post-grad history student with a secret crush on a driven, handsome associate. Then, the weight of the previous 48 hours crashed down on her. The Gala, the red dress, the tears, the slap. Marcus. She had expected to feel broken. She had expected to lie in bed and weep for the 8 years she had wasted. But as she sat up, clutching the soft, familiar linen, she felt hollow. It was a clean, cold, necessary emptiness, like a building gutted down to the studs, finally ready for a safe reconstruction. She showered and dressed, not in a sensible dress, but in a pair of simple, well-tailored trousers and a silk blouse. When she came downstairs, she found her parents in the sunroom, a bastion of quiet coffee and the rustle of the Wall Street Journal. "Good morning, darling," Isabel said, her smile gentle, her eyes searching. "Thomas made your favorite, blueberry scones. The legal team is already at their desks. Harrison said, not looking up from his paper. His voice was a low, industrial hum. The audit of Hayes Development began at 8 a.m. sharp. A full team. They're seizing his servers as we speak. Elara sat down, the warmth of the coffee cup seeping into her cold hands. You don't have to do that for me, Dad. Harrison finally put the paper down, folding it with a sharp, decisive crease. He looked at his daughter. Elara, I am not doing this for you. I am doing this because of him. He leveraged your name, our name, without your knowledge to secure lines of credit he couldn't afford. He committed, at the very least, gross ethical violations, and, at the most, he smiled, a thin, cold smile, several flavors of fraud. This isn't revenge, Elara. This is pest control. What about Chloe? Elara asked, the name tasting like ash. Miss Vance, Isabel said, taking a sip of her tea, has discovered that the city is, in fact, quite small. The other real estate firms she advises seem to be perpetually in meetings. Her salon, her trainer, even her favorite restaurant. All of their systems are mysteriously down when she calls. She is, as they say, persona non grata. The downfall was as swift as it was silent. Marcus Hayes, the meteor, didn't just burn up. He was extinguished. The City Business Journal released a digital retraction by noon on Monday, citing newly discovered financial irregularities for his removal from the Rising Stars list. The partners he'd bragged about, including Arthur Webster, suddenly couldn't recall his name. He was a ghost, and the city's elite were the most efficient exorcists in the world. The legal proceedings were a formality, a brutal piece of theatre. Elara, flanked by two of her father's shark-like senior partners, met Marcus in a sterile 40th-floor conference room. He looked small. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His rising star charisma had been replaced by the sallow, clammy desperation of a cornered man. His lawyer, a young, out-of-his-depth associate from a small firm, tried to argue for a settlement. Elara's lead counsel, a woman named Ms. Alvarez, simply slid a single document across the table. "This," she said, "is the prenuptial agreement Mr. Hayes signed 8 years ago. The one he insisted on, I might add, to protect his future earnings from you, Mrs. Hayes." Elara looked at the document. She remembered signing it, feeling hurt, but trying to be the supportive partner. "In it," Ms. Alvarez continued, "he explicitly waives any claim to any assets, current or future, derived from the Van Allen estate. Furthermore, the infidelity clause," her voice was sharp, "which your client triggered, voids his claim to the shared apartment, which, by the way, was secured with a down payment from a Van Allen trust. He has until 6 p.m. today to vacate. He may take his clothes, his car, which we've discovered has a lien on it, and his personal effects. That is all." Marcus looked at Elara, his eyes desperate, pleading. "Elara, please, 8 years. Don't do this." Elara looked at him, the man she had loved, the man who had let her be mocked. She felt nothing, no anger, no pity, just silence. She picked up the pen, signed her name, Elara Van Allen Hayes, for the last time, and stood up. "Send the final decree to my office," she said to Miss Alvarez, and walked out without looking back. 2 weeks later, the ballroom at the Metropolitan Museum was filled again, not with the shallow glitter of the Gilded Dreams Gala, but with the city's true foundation: historians, journalists, city council members, and academics. At the podium, Mr. Davenport, the same organizer who had fumbled so awkwardly, spoke with genuine reverence. "It is my profound honor to introduce the new head of the Van Allen Philanthropic Foundation, a woman whose passion for this city's history is surpassed only by her vision for its future. Please welcome Ms. Ilara Van Alen. Ilara stepped onto the stage. She wore a simple, elegant ivory pantsuit. She was not the invisible wife. She was not the crying wife. She was simply herself. The applause was warm, respectful. She gripped the sides of the lectern, her hands steady. "A few weeks ago," she began, her voice clear and carrying, "I stood in this very room. I was told that some things are baggage, that some things are sensible, and therefore invisible. I was told that the past is a nightmare to wake up from, and that only the gilded dream of the future matters." A murmur went through the crowd. They all knew the story. They had all seen the videos. "I am here to tell you," Ilara said, her voice gaining strength, "that they were wrong. Our past is not baggage. It is our foundation. It is not a nobody. It is the somebody that made us all." She looked out at the faces. "My passion has always been in the quiet places, in the archives, in the stories that no one else thought to save. I was told recently that this passion was a hobby, that it was quaint, that it was middle class." She smiled, a small, knowing smile. "Well, today I am proud to announce the first project of the new Van Alen Foundation. We are funding, in full, a multi-million-dollar initiative to save, digitize, and fully restore the complete New York City historical archive." The room burst into spontaneous, thunderous applause. Historians were on their feet. "We will not let our history be mocked," Ilara said, her voice ringing with a power she never knew she had. "We will not let it be dismissed. We will honor it. We will preserve it. This will not just be a library. This will be the Ilara Van Alen Historical Preservation Center. And our work," she looked directly into the camera of a press photographer, "is just beginning." In the front row, Harrison and Isabel Van Alen watched their daughter. Harrison's face was a mask of pure, unadulterated pride. Isabel quietly wiped a tear from her eye. As for the others, their fates were sealed not by the Van Alens, but by their own character. Chloe Vance, her name Toxic, was last seen working a perfume counter at a suburban mall, a bitter, poetic justice, forced to sell illusions to women she now envied. Marcus Hayes, facing multiple fraud investigations and utterly bankrupted, was a closed file. He had, as his lawyer said, moved away to restart his life, a meteor that had been nothing but a flash of hot, empty air. Ilara never thought of them again. She was too busy. She was building an empire, not of glass and steel, but of memory and truth. The invisible wife had become an undeniable force, and she was, at last, writing her own history. And that, everyone, is how you trade a rising star for the entire solar system. Ilara's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the quietest person in the room is holding all the cards. She had to lose everything, or think she had, to finally reclaim her own power. Marcus and Chloe were so blinded by their own greed they couldn't see the truth right in front of them. You should never, ever mock the crying wife. You have no idea whose daughter she is. What do you think was the most satisfying part of Marcus's downfall? Was it the slap, the audit, or was it Ilara's final speech? Let me know your favorite moment down in the comments. If you loved this story of karma and consequences, please don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs to see a good comeback. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. We post new real-life drama stories every single week, and you don't want to miss what happens next. Thank you for listening.